Back to Behind the Ballot, where politics meets real life. We break down state and federal issues, showing how policy shapes everyday Americans. Engaged, balanced, and informative. That's our promise. I'm your host, Mikkel Jenkins.
And this is Muhammad Alec.
And there's been a lot going on since we last spoke, Muhammad. Most importantly, I'd say the most entertaining thing that's been out there is the what's going on in Davos right now for the World Economic Forum.
Oh,
Trump
that
did
speech. I
give a
didn't watch
speech.
the whole thing, but that speech
So
was quite something from the highlights, I should say, that I saw.
yeah, yeah, I worked from home yesterday, so I was able to see. Well, I listened to the whole entire thing. Um, Very interesting. We're gonna dive into that. We're gonna dive into Pam Bondi and the House Oversight Committee over the Epstein Transparency Law. We will dive into the Jack Smith testimony, which was pretty jarring. I was able to listen to a little bit of that as well. And then we're going to move into what's going on in Minnesota. And then there's been a few developments there directly in Minnesota and indirectly about Minnesota. And then we're also going to be talking about the Supreme Court case, which, if you've been listening on this podcast, you know that we were basically stating it would be a bad precedent. That is exactly what um, Justice Kavanaugh had stated during his oral arguments. So if you're
Yeah.
listening to this podcast, uh, some things you're getting some things before they actually happen, realistically. So we'll start off first with Trump's Davos speech, and that further will entail the Greenland framework and strategic shifts as well. So we all know that President Donald Trump delivered a major address at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. I'm pretty sure Switzerland is like, isn't that like a neutral country or something like
I
that? I
mean,
believe.
Switzerland's always they're a big finance and
Yeah,
banking
yeah,
country, and they've also always been neutral. Like I believe when it came to World War II, Germany had a lot of money in Switzerland, and they've been able to hold that neutral position despite that all because they're just like, well, somebody needs to do it, and if we
right.
don't pick a side, you guys can't get angry at us, really, which has worked fairly well. I mean, a big reason why Switzerland is big on banking and finance is because of their favorable laws and the fact that they maintain that neutrality.
Yeah, I was gonna say I remember that from if you ever watched The Wolf of Wall Street, when like midway in the movie he's trying to move his money. Jordan Belfort is trying to move his money and he uses the Swiss accounts and so forth.
Yeah.
But more importantly, it was in Davos, Switzerland, and it was outlining a negotiated path toward greater US control over Greenland following a meeting with NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte. Rutte, think I'm saying that right. Trump announced a framework of a future deal focused on long-term Arctic security without military force or immediate tariffs. He explicitly ruled out invasion, stating the U.S. would pursue immediate negotiations instead. And for the parcels of land, I believe he was looking at originally giving 100,000 to each Greenlander to buy Greenland, which is little outstanding given that farmers get 20 million after being ripped off by China, and
Yeah,
Americans get two
imagine
thousand
that.
dollars as a dividend from the illegal tariffs. It's like, why are we going to send them each citizen $100,000 just for Greenland when we were talking earlier? It doesn't pose a benefit towards the everyday American,
Really
realistically.
not, really not. Like
Yeah,
the two reasons why they want Greenland more than anything, from their own words, is for the military advantage standpoint, and also
yeah,
just so then they want to make it basically like a free land for people, rich
Freedom
individuals,
City.
to open up companies and do what they want. And I understand this is the thing that bothers me. If you want to put a military base on our allies' land, we can already do that. You know, we have hundreds of military bases across the world. This isn't like an impossible thing to say. Well, oh well, NATO. Hey, we want to make sure we can. It all depends on how you say it. We want to make sure that we can have more secure access for NATO, for everyone, for the West, and so we want to make sure put down and conquer down some more in Greenland.
Yeah,
And but how he's going about it has just been so abrasive
yeah,
that it's
abrasive
been
and
no wonder people have been pushed away from it.
imperial. Yeah, it's
Yeah, very
imperialist,
imperialistic,
realistic. Yeah,
very
I mean
imperialistic.
that we talked about how he shared that AI generated map of Greenland, Venezuela, um, and Canada, all with American flags on it, basically emphasizing that he wants to do this. This is his plan, and he's not joking about the things that he wants. So when Caroline Levitt is on the stage for speaking at a press conference, and she's stating that Trump is just joking about not having a midterms. You need to go back and look at all the things he said he's joked about, and all the things he said, all the things that he joked about, and all the things that he actually accomplished from those just jokes. And there's been a
Yeah,
few things that have actually crossed the finish line. And we need to make sure that we do have these midterm elections, but then still keeping on with Greenland. The proposed framework builds directly on the existing 1951 U.S. Denmark Defense Agreement. So it's technically not a new deal. Technically, it's just building off of this original framework that was already there from 1951. So it's
yeah.
potentially expanding American military presence while addressing growing Russian and Chinese activities in the Arctic. Trump described the arrangement as infinite with no time limit, granting the U.S. total access to Greenland's strategic positions and natural resources. He's now appointed Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary Marco Rubio, and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to handle the ongoing talks. The shift the shift away from earlier aggressive rhetoric brought noticeable relief from a lot of the European leaders and within the markets. And sure, people have saw that Gavin Newsom was there at the World Economic Forum. Trump was actually talking about him.
I was wondering
Um,
why he was there as a governor.
yeah, I think a few of the governors go because I think if I'm not
It
mistaken,
is
Andy Bashir was
California.
there. Yeah,
Yeah,
Bashir was there as well. He's going to be looking to running for president. I seen a few
his
notices
hat's
about
basically
that.
fully in the race at
Yeah,
this
his
point.
dad's basically fully in the race. Yeah, yep,
Yeah,
basically. And then yeah, with Gavin Newsom, there's like a meeting that individuals that state individuals go to basically and just further conversation on what's going on globally. He was actually sidelined from that meeting. Um, so he did attend Davos, and he criticized the speech overall as remarkably boring and insignificant, offering little to no substance. He dismissed the de-escalation as a return to the status quo, sarcastically remarking, "Invasion was never on the table. Give me a damn break." Newsom mocked what he called excessive deference from world leaders, joking he should be bought. He should buy knee pads for all the world leaders that are just bending the knee for Donald Trump. And actually, he was on the fireside chat on the actual stage, and Gavin Newsom pulled to the side, and he did have those knee pads there. So it was like making a whole joke about it, and
yeah.
I think it's actually a pretty good joke when you look at what Republicans are doing, and even that world leaders at this time for Donald Trump. And then looking at the broader Democratic voices expressed much concern about the risk of NATO as cohesion and the transatlantic alliances that could be at risk if everything does go forward with Greenland. Some House Democrats questioned the vagueness of the framework, which I questioned as well. I mean, I know there's going to be things hashed out, which I am looking forward to see. And despite the diplomatic pivot that Trump has now taken, skepticism remains extremely high regarding final terms and enforceability. The Greenland issue continues to be a major test of U.S. Relations with the European partners. So it's going to be
I
next
mean,
few. I
we've
imagine we
even
might have a deal in like
honestly,
I could see. I mean, mind you, he said a framework of a deal for healthcare when he was a candidate, and what we got was a
a
little almost
framework of an idea. You know what
yeah
that's like
framework of, and you have a
that's
framework of an
political
idea.
talk for we have an idea of an idea.
Yeah, basically. So it's
Yeah,
like
a
we'll see what
framework
this
of a
framework's going to be like, and I hope
I
you
mean,
guys will be able to be here to join us as we break that down even further.
if there really is an actual plan. But I mean,
Right, if there even is.
we've already seen a lot of pushback from the European leaders regarding Trump's stance on Greenland. We've seen them just actually recently because of this all just yesterday this week. They've been threatening to halt and completely stop the trade deal
Yes,
agreement
the
that
EU
they
trade
have
deal.
been
Yep.
working on, yeah, with America for avoiding this all, avoiding tariffs and having, something that's beneficial to America per Trump's own beliefs. And one thing that always makes me laugh about this all is that I'm a full believer that free trade is the best trade. You shouldn't just use political leverage, especially on allies. Like, I understand if you want to try to use your financial strong arm in order to force enemies into certain positions that make them weaker. But a lot of the time, what we see that just results in things like BRICS, where these countries who you isolate
Yep.
then go to like, okay, well, if we can't rely on the West, we'll rely on the East.
Yep. We'll just group together.
And so we're even seeing that right now with Canada, where they've been signing deals directly with China instead of the US because of how difficult, for the lack of a better word, Trump has been with this all. And I think seeing how the European Union literally had to say, hey, if you don't stop this, if you don't stop threatening this whole Greenland thing and threatening tariffs on us for disagreeing with you, we're just going to nuke the entire trade deal agreement that we started in the summer. And then we're back to square one.
Yeah. Back to
You
square
want
one.
that?
Yep.
And he's
Hmm.
like, no, and he backed off because of that, actually.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see where it goes from here. I, it's always, I love seeing, especially politicians, because they're so arrogant. But I love seeing arrogant individuals get like checked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he got checked. I mean, him getting checked is led to the rhetoric within the speech, basically.
Oh
Why
yeah,
he's stating, no invasion, we're going to try to work on some framework, either buying or putting military bases on there from the 1951 original agreement. And what's funny is that he's even said that Denmark doesn't have the capabilities, one, to protect, and two, they don't have legitimacy to Greenland just because they landed a boat there 500 years ago.
yeah,
Funny enough that this agreement is going to still be the one that's the groundwork for the framework for this deal, and
yeah.
he was just trying to knock it off. And funny
It'll,
enough, that's America as well. I mean, when you look at it,
the
we
pilgrim just showed up
yeah,
on
just
boats.
showed up, showed up on
Yeah,
boats. Yep. And then
and
as the Davos conference was continuing, Trump had his stepson, I believe, Jared Kushner, giving a slideshow presentation about the rebuilding plan for Gaza, his vision for a new Gaza. Now, I believe it was in the summer months when me and Muhammad were reporting about this, that they were trying to turn it into a waterfront property almost, just make it as touristy as possible and just make as much revenue as possible. So
it's
Jared Kushner,
disgusting.
yeah, it's terrible. Jared Kushner is serving as a special envoy. He presented an ambitious reconstruction master plan for Gaza during the Davos Forum. The proposals position Gaza's redevelopment as a center pillar of the newly formed Board of Peace, something that we touched on last podcast. There's actually, I think, 17 countries now either accepting of the invitation or are officially on the board of the Boards of Peace, which is now chaired by Donald Trump lifetime. And estimated to cost at least 25 billion. So the plan aims to transform the devastated enclave into a prosperous economic center by 2035 and envisions modern skyscrapers, waterfront resorts, data centers, industrial parks, a new seaport, and an international airport, all built on free market principles. Reconstruction would begin
Free.
in the south.
I
Yeah,
just want to say
yeah, go
that
in.
hearing free market principles
Yeah,
from
man.
Donald Trump of all people is so funny. Like, dude, everything that you've been doing, you scrapped the North American Free Trade Agreement because you didn't like the free trade. It's just, I love seeing people throw buzzwords because that'll just stick in voters' minds or people who are reporting on its minds. Like, Fox News or the old people or the big MAGA people
Yeah,
heard, oh yeah, free trade, democracy. Hell, the big reason why Israel gets so much support from the West is because they're the only democracy in the Middle East. You
yeah,
hear that all the time,
all the
disregarding the
time.
fact that Turkey actually has a democracy and they're arguably in the Middle East. I mean, half of Turkey is literally in
Yeah,
Asia.
I was gonna say literally half of it's just about in the Middle East. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Istanbul split into two halves,
yeah, I was gonna. Yep.
Asia and Europe, and so it's interesting seeing just how much they're willing to. If you, I guess the easiest way to say is when you notice the depravity of it all and how much it's such a big charade. It's, you just kind of look for that charade else everywhere you see, everywhere you look. Like the idea of, like, if you're looking for the color red, you're gonna find red, but you're gonna miss everything else. If you're looking for the charade, though, you will absolutely find the charade, and you might miss a few other things. But no
Yeah,
one's perfect. No one has like 2020 vision when it comes to ideas and where things
yeah,
are
no one
going.
knows.
But it's damning how clearly bad this I should say, but I don't think I want to say clearly bad. It's damning how evidently clear it is of how he's just using these words to push this immoral agenda, and he's trying to make it like, oh, this is good for America. It's
Right.
free market
Yeah.
democracy.
I mean, for the billionaires, it's going to be good for when they
Mhm.
can,
The people who are able to
fly over
buy
there, be over
beachfront
there.
housing and
Yep.
luxury condos and have
Yep.
investments in tech and in weapon manufacturing and more. Like, yeah, it's going to be great for the super rich.
Yep,
It
and we're gonna
literally
be
won't.
subsidizing all of that, like, what's like, like, as we
Yeah, who's
already
paying for it?
subsidize
Who's gonna be
Israel, like,
paying for
who's
this?
gonna
So
be
I
paying
bet
for
we
this?
are. I
No,
can
we're
guarantee you we
we're
are.
1,000%. We have been paying for it from the 20,000,000 going to the farmers. We've That's American taxpayer dollars. From the money from Venezuela to rebuild all of their refineries, that's gonna be taxpayer dollars and or investments from, oil companies, but they view this as uninvestable. When I say this, I mean Venezuela. And then now we have this reconstruction project of Gaza, where most likely it's going to be coming from the United States taxpayer. As we've been funding everything within Israel. Mother here has to pay almost 10,000 in childcare, 5,000 in healthcare. But over there in Israel, it's everything's completely paid for by our American taxpayer dollars.
It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
but staying on the this whole vision of new Gaza. So the reconstruction would begin in the south with Rafah, I believe. Muhammad, correct me if I'm saying that right.
Rafa, I believe that is how you say it. It's the one right near the border to Egypt.
Perfect, perfect. So largely destroyed during the Israel-Hamas conflict would be rebuilt within 2 to 3 years before expanding northward. The design includes residential high-rises, tourism districts, and a job creation through industry and workforce housing. Kushner described the goal as catastrophic success. It's a interesting way to put it.
Interesting
Such
way,
an interesting way to put it. Catastrophic success. That's kinda like,
right?
I like I've been watching House of Cards, so I like when he says, ruthless pragmaticism. That's what kinda gives me that same vibe, but catastrophic success is a little, I
It's
don't know,
like
that doesn't sit too right
it's
compared.
like saying beautiful war,
Yeah, something
like
like that.
those 2 words don't go together. You say catastrophe, you imagine things went as horrible as they could. Then success, like, so you wanted things to go as bad as they could have. That's
Yeah, it's
exactly what
what
that
it's
means.
yeah, it's kinda what it seems like it's pointing to from his words, and then obviously all of
Can't trust
this.
the Zios, dude. It's
No.
insane.
And, all of this is contingent on Hamas's complete demilitarization, which who knows if that's going to happen.
Israel
Amnesty
funds
would
that,
be
so
offered to
probably never will
fighters who lay down their weapons. So, yeah, I don't know if the Hamas is really gonna be demilitarized, but they possibly could. I mean, they were willing to sign the original, peace deal with Israel before everything, hit the fan. But
happen.
overall, the boards of peace would oversee immediate steps. They would increase humanitarian aid, um, begin the restoration of water and electricity infrastructures, and reopening of hospitals, bakeries within the first 100 days. And then there are a lot of critics who are highlighting the uncertainty around funding sources and questions about political viability given ongoing ceasefire fragility and the displacement of nearly Gaza's entire population. Kushner used detailed maps and renderings to showcase a vision of a peaceful, prosperous new Gaza.
Peaceful
He's
without the Palestinians there.
Oh yeah, right. And then
That's
he
the goal.
insisted that there is no plan B. If Hamas refuses to disarm fully, this proposal has generated both caution, optimism, and substantial doubt. Logistical financial security hurdles remain formidable within this plan as we have broke it down. And the plan reflects Kushner's long-standing focus on economic incentives as a plan for regional stability, which is not a bad thing. Economic incentives can lead to regional stability, but when you're doing it in the form of this, where you're not letting the Palestinians almost have a say within what's going to be going on. Like, yes, Hamas is over within that area and governing over Palestinian area. And then Muhammad, correct me if I'm wrong on that. But it's like you're gonna build a new house basically, but you're not gonna include the owner. It's
Yeah.
basically kinda what's going on.
That's what I mean, that's what the settler terrorism that Israel does is all about. I mean, if you look at the West Bank, they'll kick people out. This is what a lot of Gaza was, but, they
Yeah,
want to
no,
go
yeah.
crazy with Gaza, but the West Bank is them just slowly encroaching and taking land through the power of the IDF, or Israeli military police, or just police in general, and these people literally take someone's house and then kick the owner out. Like it's there's there's this one picture that really makes me laugh, but it's incredibly frustrating and sad, where a Zionist Jewish couple from New York, because they had for those who don't know, they will literally hold like seminars and like conventions to sell housing in the West Bank and in Gaza,
Oh, wow,
in
I
New
did not
York
know
and
that.
New Jersey, where there's these large Jewish populations, and the houses still have people living in them. And it's like, hey, we're selling houses that don't belong to us because they'll belong to us soon. It's literally the pitch. So it's like you can get these houses in these, you get these houses for cheap because they're in high risk areas, but we'll make sure it's not high risk for you because we're the ones who are making it high risk in the first place.
Mhm.
And I mean, I know, Mikhail, you were talking about how the idea of Hamas demilitarizing.
Yeah.
Hamas has agreed to nearly every peace plan that's been given to it,
Yeah, it's
especially.
Israel that throws the shot that makes them want to revamp everything again.
Yeah, I mean, I remember this was back in, I think, half a year ago, back in the summer. There was a peace plan involved where the Netanyahu was the one who pitched it, but he
Yeah, I think it
didn't
was
want his
December,
name.
yeah.
He didn't want his name attached to it, so it was known as the Steve Witkoff peace plan. And Hamas agreed to it. It was like
Mhm.
complete turn over all the hostages, demilitarized. It was like all parts and pieces to it. And then it was like, and we promise you, Israel will leave Gaza. And then after they started to return more hostages, Israel said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! We can't agree to this anymore. Look at what Hamas is doing. They violated the deal already." And I mean, that's the thing with this whole Gaza
If
situation.
I'm not mistaken, was that had to do with that, like, construction explosion that they deemed came from, like, the
That was an
Palestinians or
example of
something?
one of the
I
few
was gonna
times
say,
they've done
yeah,
that with peace deals.
it's been
For this
multiple
one
times.
specifically, I think it was literally just that bomb thing was so frustrating because
Yeah.
they ran over their own bomb using a
Mhm.
bulldozer.
Yep.
But with over the summer, it wasn't necessarily a certain event that happened, more so that Israel just accused Hamas of no longer abiding by it. But there was no like one event that made it happen.
Mm.
And then we later learned that the deal that Steve Witkoff put up was completely set up by the Israeli government, and the Israeli government didn't really expect Hamas to take it. Hamas takes it, and they're like, "Oh shit, well, let's just go with Plan B." Oh wait, hey, these guys violated the deal. But we can't follow the deal. They violated it. This is why. Do you expect us to be idiots? Do you expect us to be
Right.
gullible? And I mean, even right now, since the ceasefire has been signed like 50, 60 days ago, Israel hasn't ceased bombing at all. But the moment Hamas will strike back, it's all of a sudden, oh, the ceasefire's over. X, Y, Z. How can you have a deal with these savages, these terrorists, these warmongers? And it is just, man, it is frustrating. And
Mm-mm-mm. I'm like,
I just feel bad, man.
I'm 'cause I before getting on, I did see potentially that there is going to be, next few days, an actual attack on Iran that Israel has confirmed that the United States has greenlighted an attack on Iran. I saw that before leaving, but I saw some other things I'm gonna chime into once we get down to, like, the, Minnesota stuff because the House did just pass that, DHS Homeland Security funding bill, which includes increases to ICE,
More
enforcement
increases
funding.
to ICE
Seven
already.
7, House Democrats voted with Republicans, so we're gonna hold that right there. We'll get to that. Our next stop is maybe the juiciest part of it, Jack Smith's testimony, defending
Dude,
the
you know more
Trump
about this than I do.
investigations. Yeah, this was all very, very insane when I was, listening to it. I mean, I wish everyone had the chance to listen to it. He talks about how Trump threatened, witnesses. They played the phone call that he had with the, Georgia Secretary of State. Listening to it again, I'm like, how do you not hear that he is just trying to subvert this election? He's like,
Yeah,
yeah, just find, a couple thousand votes, just say it's fraud. And he's like, sir, like your data is wrong. He's like,
yeah.
oh, you just say it's fraud, like this, then the third. But To give everyone a more detailed explanation, former special counsel Jack Smith appeared before the House Judiciary Committee in his first public congressional testimony. The hearing centered on his investigations into President Trump's handling of classified documents and alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election. Smith defended the indictments and stated the evidence met the standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. He asserted Trump willfully violated laws he had sworn to uphold. Smith described a deliberate scheme involving false voter fraud claims to obstruct certification of the election results. Don't forget he had those fake oh my gosh, what is it? Fake, not electorates, not delegates, I believe that it was during this whole process as well. And Jack Smith has warned that Americans increasingly take the rule of law for granted and
Yeah.
stressed that the need for collective commitment to preserve it, which I can truly understand. I mean,
There's
he
this
expressed, yeah.
for 5 seconds that really applies here. I remember one big thing of what happened when the Weimar Republic became Nazi Germany. Weimar Republic was the name of the country post World War One Germany before Hitler took over. They like some of the officials of the party that wanted the Weimar Republic to continue were asked like, why'd you guys allow the Nazi party to get so much power? You know, I mean, like you saw the
Yeah.
writing on the wall of the hateful rhetoric, and they're like, well, we really didn't expect them to completely violate the law of the country. Once they had the
Mhm.
power, no one could do anything about it. Like they broke the law of the country to get the power. Then once they had that power, we couldn't do anything.
Yep. I
I'm
mean,
like, yeah,
Congress became
that can
basically
you
useless.
can't
I mean,
yeah, you can't just say, "Oh, we don't expect them to do that." They can and will. People want power. People are hungry. I mean, this makes me laugh because Kamala Harris said something similar the other month. She was like, "I expected the billionaires to care more about what's going on." I'm like, "Really? You expect the people who can profit off of power change and grab it to
right,
really
literally.
accommodate the needs of the common man? You
The people
really
who can just
expect
move
that?"
to a different country with no problem and still make the same amount of money, like, you really think that they care what's truly going on here as long as their
Yeah,
pockets and
yeah, like, "Oh
margins
my god,
expand?
who's gonna save the
No.
country? The billionaires." Like, "Get out of here. I'm glad you lost,"
Yeah, and
you
I even
know?
remember it when listening to Davos, the billionaires, millionaires that were over there, CEOs and so forth, were talking about how bad the Biden economy was for them, and it's like, when you hear a banker talk about how bad a certain economy was under a president, it was probably good for the, consumer then, which
Yeah,
9 times out of t which within those 4 years of Biden, overall economically for the individual, it was better. I would say better than it is now. I would say little discrepancy when you look at Trump's 4 years compared to Biden's 4 years because Trump had the coattails of the Obama economy. Not gonna get into that deeply, but, still on this testimony, Jack Smith expressed serious concern over potential witness tampering that, necessitated judicial non-disclosure orders. Under Republicans' questioning, Smith maintained the charges were driven solely by evidence, not politics.
yeah,
Democrats lauded his work while Republicans challenged the findings without issuing a formal rebuttal. Jim Jordan was one of those individuals he's the chairman of the committee. He was going back and forth with Jack Smith. And funny enough, for my current position, we do go to DC once a year. And actually, the one year I was there, I actually did see Jim Jordan. He's a pretty short guy. He's a wrestler as well, so he's a
yeah,
pretty
I know,
short guy.
he's caught up in the Ohio State sex abuse scandal.
Yeah, he was caught up in all of that. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I don't
So
trust that
overall,
man at
the
all.
no, not at all. And the testimony renewed a focus on Trump's post-reelection actions to retain power. It highlighted ongoing debates over accountability and the independence of special counsels. The hearing remains a key moment in the broader narrative of legal challenges facing the administration. And it's going to be interesting to see what comes from that when the Democrats are in power. Do they
Yeah,
appoint Jack Smith as attorney general? I think that's a great move. I mean, it's Merrick Garland was the one that really failed the Democrats overall because he was the attorney general when Biden was president.
yeah,
He could have done all of these things, but they decided not to pursue, and that was the blue heart of the Democrats. Now it needs to go to the opposite direction, and I think
They need to fight like
yeah,
dogs.
they need to be outside of the rule book. I mean, I think AOC has been basically stating that we need to be just like Republicans. Just because we play by the rules and they don't, we point the fingers at them. We need to start doing the same exact things, play that dirty work. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that when it comes to the redistricting battles because not we Democrats are winning across the board when it comes to this battle that the Trump administration started originally.
Yeah, no, I can't. It's gonna be really exciting seeing how those because California kicks in for 2026, right?
I think so. Yeah, 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 yeah. There's a
Next time
few
I
that
guess
kick in. I
we're
do want to
not
give.
naive enough to think the Democrats aren't playing dirty, but there's playing dirty by the rule book and then playing dirty by and not the rule book, which both parties do, and then there's playing dirty by absolutely crippling the country for your own interests and needs, which is what we're
Yes.
seeing the Republicans in power do. And I don't mean all Republicans by any means. Most
Oh no.
Republicans as well simply like to play it by the book. But
Yeah, I
when you get
mostly tell
caught
people. Yeah.
when the guy in charge is threatening you to lose your job, and it's like, hey, either lose your job or agree with this thing that you don't agree with. That's why you hear so much Republicans talk about how much they disagree with Trump behind the scenes, but then they still go with it, you know?
Right.
That's why. Like the president shouldn't be able to just simply say and threaten, "Hey, congressman, I'm going to completely use my ability as president to make you lose your seat if you disagree with me." It really gets rid of the whole idea of separate of checks and balances, not to the point where the system is still in play. But wait, so by your logic, AOC wants to cripple the country for her own self-interest. Yeah, I'd say that. I honestly say that.
Yeah.
I'd
I
agree
mean,
with
the
the fact
same
that
thing that's going on right now with Donald Trump. He's the
why do you think
interest of the
Republicans are so
billionaires.
scared of it? They're saying, shit, man, once Democrats get in power, they're going to do the same stuff we're doing right now. And why do
Yeah.
you think they're so scared of that? Because they know what they're doing isn't good. I mean, it's not really,
Yeah.
really. I mean, that's why,
Yeah.
I mean, you even hear I think it was not the VP. God, it was a high ranking Republican. But Kavanaugh just said it in his own way. If we allow this to happen, it's going to come right back around and
Yep.
rock the other side when the Democrats are in power. And
Yep.
actually, it was Ben Shapiro who said it. It was Ben Shapiro. Shapiro said, once the Democrats gain power, they're going to do the exact same thing the Republicans have been doing. They're going to go
Yeah.
for
And the
blood, and
playbook
that's
was put
not how.
out by the Republicans.
Yeah, and he was
They
like,
were the one that opened the gate, started doing the treading, and I've been saying this. It's going to be bad when Democrats take over because the level of precedents that are going to be set by this president.
"Oh
So
yeah,
vote AOC. She's going to be just as bad as Trump, if not worse.
I disagree with that. I don't like
I
a lot
would
of AOC's policies,
I
to
would
be
disagree
honest,
with that
but
too. I mean, look
I
at what's
think
his
that
name, Mondami. I mean,
I
he's doing
think
amazing
healthcare
things in
for
the media.
all is one thing that literally most of the country does agree on. That's a fact. Most of the country does agree Medicare for all is needed. It's just how are we going to do it? And I don't agree with a
Exactly.
lot of progressive policies. Absolutely not. But Medicare for all, absolutely. That's a new world right, in my opinion.
Realistically, FDR's economic bill of rights should just be the Democrats' talking points. But staying on topic here,
Yeah, you FDR dog.
we're moving to the Supreme Court independent agency rulings. So justices' comments and implications. We were also right on this as well, if I do say so myself, Mohammed. So the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in Trump v. Cook, a case testing presidential authority to remove Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook without cause. Trump cited unproven allegations in seeking her dismissal. Justices from both ideological wings displayed deep concern about eroding the Fed's independence. The bench appeared reluctant to undermine the central bank's unique status.
We didn't even see Republican Congress members come out against this as well, and specifically for
Well, that
Jerome
and
Powell.
with Jerome Powell, they said we will. Well, the two big things that have been have gotten impeachment through a lot of Republicans' ears have been Greenland and then the attack on Jerome Powell as well, which I
Because
haven't
Trump
heard
put
anything.
Jerome
Yeah, he
Powell
put him in
in.
there. Yeah, I mean,
He
I haven't
literally
heard
put him
anything
in.
more, but yeah, not too sure. But Justice Kavanaugh warned that allowing unchecked removals could weaken, if not shatter, the Fed independence, risking recession and future partisan abuse. Justice Amy Coet Barrett, two individuals who were put in by Trump, pointed to economists' fears of market turmoil from politicized monetary policy. Justice Elaine Kagan, I believe I'm saying that right, argued agencies perform quasi legislative functions and full executive control could dangerously concentrate power. Justice Sotomayor highlighted due process violations in the abrupt actions against Cook. Mohammed, you want to take the comment?
Damn. So Democrats have done absolutely. I mean, I'll give them right. Since Obama did make some changes, they weren't the best changes in my opinion. They
But
really
they
weren't.
were changes that were the best that was
They put
proposed
a
at the
lot
time.
of.
Like, I know there were different
He should
versions.
have went for Medicare for all then and there.
No, yeah,
That's
he
all I
he
believe.
he spent all of his political capital on Obamacare,
Yeah,
realistically,
he
because that's
did.
really it was that and then gay marriage. After that, he was basically done. There was no
Yeah,
more that he could do, unfortunately. So,
but
yes, was it better than before? I would probably say yes, personally.
I will add this. The system how it's set up now is heavily sending taxpayer subsidized money to insurance companies. It's set up where these people can really just keep nickel and diming us and we don't have a choice about it because the government's going to send the money anyway. That's why without the ACA subsidies, the prices skyrocket because they've really booked it into their business plan and model how they're going to
Yeah,
use that money and how it's part of it. And then you get in the fact that I understand why, but again, the fact that then they're also forced to accommodate older sick people by lowering their prices by increasing other people's prices. So the argument comes up, well, I'm not old. I take care of myself. I understand that these people also, don't deserve to have skyrocketing health prices. But if I am going to have to choose between the young people in the future of this country or the old people who have had the time and the power to make these decisions in the first place, yeah, I'm going to pick the young people. Like I'll proudly say that right now. I will really say if we're going to set up this country, 1% of our budget goes to dialysis patients. Dialysis. 1% of the budget goes to dialysis for old people. 1%. You know how much that's billions,
yeah,
billions to dialysis specifically. And it's just like how much more are we willing to shotgun ourselves in the knees for the elderly when we should be the elderly and the older people. Hell, when I'm older, I'll say this as well. The elderly and the older folks should be taking themselves in the seat where they're like, "Yep, we want this country to grow. We understand things are going to be harder for us, and then we want the future to be better for the young." But they're
yeah,
saying, "No, we don't care about the future for the young. We want our lives to be good now." That's why you don't see too. That's why for example, I won't speak too much more about this because we want to stay on topic, but the housing property taxes are a fantastic example about this. This
yes,
is big in Florida. They say, "Oh well, the elderly. We should give property tax cuts to the elderly because they're old." And I'm like, why not give it to new people who are starting families? Why not give it to young people who are trying to start their lives? The argument of, oh, these people have had 40, 50 years of working to plan. So what, now we're just going to throw away a massive tax revenue source because we're saying, oh, well, they've done their work. Well, okay, yeah, they've known what the job is, and I don't mean to say that in like no, they should keep where everyone should work for everyday lives. No, by no means. But when you have 40, 50 years to plan for a future that your people are the ones putting in power, and then you're like, oh, well, I want it to be a bit easier for us, even if it makes it worse for the young generation, that's backwards. That's
yeah, I
backwards.
agree.
When the country is putting itself on the back of the elderly, just like how they work, those knees will crumble and so will the country. And we have put everything into accommodating for the old, accommodating for the elderly, accommodating for the people who didn't think or care about the plan ahead. And don't get me wrong, life happens. I know you can't always plan for everything, but we should not, and I'll really die on this hill, we should not be accommodating the elderly, especially with healthcare as we
Mm.
are now. We shouldn't.
No, that's a very fair point. I can agree with that too. I feel like it should be more beneficial for the younger generation to be within that healthcare because obviously we are going to be growing into that elderly space where we're going to have a lot of things going on. But it's
Like,
the
dude, for
elderly that
example,
are sucking in a lot of that healthcare that makes it more expensive for the rest of us on the other end of the spectrum.
I maybe go to the doctor twice a year. I got a dermatologist now. So I go there, once a year. I have to pay, my job pays like how it normally works with employers. They pay about 80%, 70,
Yeah.
80% of the healthcare costs. You pay 20 to 30%. And that comes out bi-weekly, weekly, however much you get your paycheck.
Yep.
They all in all, a normal 20 something person has quite thousands and on in their name going sent for healthcare, even though they don't spend thousands at all most of the time. So the question is, well, we're really taking out this financial capital from people who need it more than ever because the young people don't have homes. The mean average house buying age is in the 40s now. Housing prices have gone skyrocketing. Housing is getting more expensive. And so everything's getting more expensive. And what do? We just make it cheaper for the old people and more expensive for everyone else. It's
Yeah.
backwards. It's absolutely backwards. Like, you guys are literally the richest group in the country.
Yeah,
You
they
don't
are.
deserve to have things be cheaper. You don't. I'm sorry. If it bothers you, then suck an egg. It's the truth.
No, yeah, I completely agree. Going to just reel back into the Supreme Court decision. Thank you, Mohammed, for taking that comment. Appreciate that. And Justice Alito criticized the administration's handling and urged factual developments before any ruling. The case follows a May 2025 decision permitting removals from other agencies, but justices distinguished the Fed as a uniquely structured quasi private institution. This distinction may preserve its insulation from direct political interference. The outcome could reaffirm or limit the 1935 Humphrey executive precedent, which we have talked about on our podcast, which protects independent commissions. The conservative justices like Alito, Gorsuch, and Thomas seemed open to broader presidential removal powers outside the Fed context. So that means outside of the Fed, they are open to having removal of other federal agencies that don't have that same quasi-ness that the Fed has. Liberal justices like Jackson and Kagan stress the Congress's constitutional role in designing agency independence, and a decision is expected to carry major implications, which I believe a decision was made, if I'm not mistaken. I was just looking on Twitter that they are not going to uphold Trump's firing of Letta James. So it seems like the Supreme Court is going to be on the right side of history with this one. I would agree. And I know we have like two sections left. Take that. You want to take that other comment?
I'll just keep going.
Okay, cool, cool.
We can't reply to everything.
Yeah,
Even
that's
though
very true.
I know it's just X and XF, and I do like seeing what he has to say, but we gotta stay on topic because we do have things we got to get to tonight.
Yes. So we have next, we're going to go through. This is a little bit of a big one going on in Minnesota. So it's the fraud case and renewed congressional scrutiny. So Minnesota, I don't know if you saw this. This happened the other day. This happened on, I think, Tuesday before Jack Smith. No, Wednesday. Sorry, this happened Wednesday during everything with Davos going on. It's actually
Yeah.
the House Judiciary Committee on Crime and Federal Government Surveillance held a second hearing titled When Public Funds Are Abused. Federal prosecutors described potentially industrial scale theft costing taxpayers billions across child nutrition, Medicaid, and related programs. YouTuber and journalist Nick Shirley testified about organized schemes he exposed through viral videos. Shirley detailed falsified claims in the 250 million Feeding Our Future case, the largest known COVID era fraud resulting in dozens of convictions. He credited local tips and independent investigations for uncovering systematic abuse. Critics point to former Governor Tim Walz's administration for insufficient oversight, contributing to his decision not to seek re-election. The hearing featured sharp partisan. I think I am frozen. Skip. Oh, it's Muhammad still in this. Muhammad's connection dropped. So we are going to go back and continue where we last were. Sorry about that internet connection issue to our listeners. So as I was talking, so surely the YouTuber detailed the falsified claims of the 250 million from feeding our future case, and this is going to go into what was going on with the Somalian daycares as well that he exposed too. So Republicans pressed for greater accountability, while Democrats, including Representative Jamie Ranskin, argued that matters were already under active investigation. Witnesses Jennifer Larson, an autism care provider, cautioned that aggressive federal enforcement could shutter legitimate services and harm vulnerable children. The probe has broadened to include state audits, nonprofit oversights, and possible foreign connections. Republicans advocated for new DOJ fraud units and systematic reforms. Related allegations involve Medicaid and housing programs misuse. Federal estimates place potential losses at a high as $9 billion in some estimates. The case continues to fuel debate over governmental accountability and program integrity. Congressional attention show no sign of warning. And on top of all this, there's a new development as heightened tensions in Minnesota continue to build. An internal ICE memo dated May 12th, 2025, and signed by Acting Director Todd Loins authorized immigration officers to forcibly enter homes without a judicial warrant in certain cases. The memo allows agents to use an administrative warrant form I-205 to enter residences and make arrests of individuals with final orders of removal, provided they knock, announce, and give a reasonable opportunity to open the door before using any unnecessary force. This marks a sharp reversal to the long-standing ICE guidance that respected Fourth Amendment limits on warrantless home entries. The policy shift has forced fierce criticism from advocates, Democrats, and civil rights groups alike, who argue it violates constitutional protections against unreasonable searches and seizures. Senator Richard Blumenthal called it legally and morally adherent, and warning it enables agents to kick down your door and storm into your house. Whistleblowers have disclosed the memo to Congress, claiming it contradicts prior training and Supreme Court precedents requiring judicial warrants for home entries absent consent or extendency. So the memo comes amid the Trump administration mass deportation push with thousands of new officers deployed nationwide. There are a lot of incentives for these officers to go in, do the training, and get these high levels of arrest. So high profile incidents in Minneapolis, including forcible entries captured on video, have sparked protests and clashes. Some of those videos we have talked about on this podcast specifically. And immigrant communities have long been advised not to open doors to ICE without a judge signed warrant. This directive directly undercuts the guidance. Legal challenges are going to be expected, and I'm sure the Trump administration is looking forward to these legal challenges to try to give more proof that their memo and the standing of their memo is actually constitutional. So this level of change really intensifies the scrutiny of federal government enforcement tactics in states like Minnesota. And when Muhammad was on, we were talking that other states like Texas and Florida have a higher counts of illegal immigrants, but we're not seeing that same level of enforcement or deterrence within those areas because they are Republican areas. I'm sure Trump may be going into them, but at the moment, there is a very high focus on Minnesota currently. Still going, keeping on with ICE in Minnesota, House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries announced in a closed door meeting that he personally opposes the bill to fund DHS for fiscal year, but he is not launching a formal whip operation to pressure his caucus to vote against it, which is understandable in the sense because 2026 is right around the corner. You have about 7 Democrats who are in swing states, or at least Trump won states, who need to be able to fight for their record. basically. They don't want to be able to put in a vote that's against ICE when individuals in their community are actually for ICE. It's almost a situation that I myself had to walk professionally when I worked for the Pennsylvania State House trying to get geriatric parole passed, moving the age from 55 originally to 65 just to have Republicans stomach it as well as the Midwest Democrats be able to vote on that bill. This DHS bill includes guardrails like funding for detention centers, mandatory body cameras for ICE agents, which we talked about in the last podcast, and public interaction training, but omits measures to prevent detention of U.S. citizens or borrowing personnel from other agencies. This comes amid calls for ICE accountability following the murder of Renee Good in Minneapolis. This highlighting the brutality and enforcement actions. So, despite potential for a strong Democratic opposition to influence Senate negotiations, as I was saying, the leader decided not to go on a full scale operation and just let, I believe it was 7 Democrats vote in turn with the Republicans to pass out the DHS funding bill. And I will see if those votes will be consequential for those 7 members or if activists will start to come out against those 7 members. I personally don't think it's suitable to come out against them realistically because at the end of the day, they do have to abide by their constituents. And if their constituents are individuals that are for and supportive of ICE, they should be voting in that same essence and in that same step. Always talk about house cards, but as Frank Underwood states, as he always states, vote your conscience, vote your district, and don't surprise me. Vote your conscience and vote your district, the most important things that you can do. And lastly, that we're going to have on here is looking at Pam Bondi. Oh, one second. Let's just go. Starting with Pam Bondi and the Epstein case. So we've dove into a lot here with that. I don't understand how she's not being held in contempt of Congress for not allowing these Epstein files to be released and even to be redacted on any regard. I doubt that they will ever be released, just given the magnitude of them. But as things continue to develop on all these fronts that we have been talking about, we'll be sure to give you guys the most accurate and the most balanced perspective news as possible that we can provide. And as always, to our listeners, thank you again for tuning into Behind the Ballot, where we keep politics engaged, balanced, and informative. Stay curious, stay critical, and stay involved. I'm Mikkel Jenkins, and until next time, keep looking beyond the headlines and behind the ballot. Have a good night.